Throughout the next unit, we are going to be learning about radical functions and radical equations. Now, whenever I say radicals, I'm talking about roots. Primarily, we're going to be focusing on square roots and cube roots. So I just want to start by introducing what a square root is and what a cube root is. By definition, the square root of a number is the value that you would need to square to get that number. So for example, the square root of 9. We all know that the square root of 9 is 3 because 3 squared is 9. 3 times 3 is 9, therefore the square root of 9 is 3. Okay, so apply the same principle to 25. The square root of 25 would be 5 because 5 squared is 25. 5 times 5 is 25. So the opposite of that, the square root of 25, would be 5. Now, something weird happens here. Square root of negative 16. It can't be 4 because 4 times 4 is 16. So a lot of people think, oh, okay, it must be negative 4. But negative 4 squared, negative 4 times negative 4, is also a positive 16. So it can't be a positive 4, it can't be a negative 4. If you recall earlier in the year, we talked about imaginary numbers. This is where imaginary numbers come in. You can't actually take the square root of negative 16. What you would do is have an imaginary 4. So 4i. The square root of 16 is 4. So the square root of negative 16 would be an imaginary 4, 4i. Same thing with the square root of negative 49. Square root of 49 is 7 because 7 squared is 49. But also if you think about a negative 7 squared is still a positive 49 because negative 7 times negative 7 is positive 49. So the square root of negative 49 couldn't be positive 7 and it couldn't be negative 7. It would have to be an imaginary 7, 7i. So square roots, you can only take the square root of a positive number. If you try to take the square root of a negative number, you end up with an imaginary answer. Okay, so something new we're studying this year are cube roots. A cube root is very similar to a square root. Here, in order to find the cube root of a number, you just have to find the value that you would cube to get that number. So remember, square something, you multiply it by itself twice. If you cube something, you have to take a number and multiply it by itself 3 times. Okay, so let's start with the cube root of 8. The cube root of 8 would be 2 because 2 cubed, or 2 times 2 times 2, gives you 8, right? 2 times 2 is 4. And then 4 times 2 would be 8. So the cube root of 8 is 2 because 2 cubed is 8. Okay, so apply the same principle to the cube root of 125. So you're looking for what number could you raise to the third power that would get you 125. The answer here would be 5 because if you do 5 to the third, 5 times 5 times 5, you get 125. 5 times 5 is 25, times 5 again is 125. So the cube root of 125 is just 5. Okay, so now we start working on the negative side. And what we want to really compare here is how cube roots differ from square roots. So cube root of negative 27, we want to know, is there any number that you could raise to the third power and end up with negative 27? So let's try this. This is going to be negative 3 to the third power. So negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. Well, negative 3 times negative 3 would be a positive 9. And 9 times negative 3 would in fact be negative 27. So this is doable. There's nothing imaginary about it. The cube root of negative 27 is negative 3. Because if you take negative 3 to the third power, you do end up with negative 27. Okay, so that means on the last one here, the cube root of negative 64 would have to be negative 4. And the reason why this works is if you take negative 4 to the third power, so that would be negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4. Well, negative 4 times negative 4 would be a positive 16, and 16 times negative 4 would be negative 64. So the cube root of negative 64 is negative 4 because negative 4 to the third power is equal to negative 64.